Hello good ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to video essay number 7. I'm your host 8-Bit Preston, and today I'll be exploring the world of 4546B as I tell you all why I believe Subnautica is a genre defining game. The devs of this game have only had 2 proper game releases before this, and that was Natural Selection 2 and its predecessor. Subnautica is technically their 3rd game and is vastly different to what came before. So hats off to you Unknown Worlds, you've made a masterpiece. The game began its early access phase in 2014, that's right, 2014, 7 freaking years ago. The final product was eventually released in 2018 and gained critical acclaim, as well as having a massive audience to boot thanks to popular YouTubers such as Jacksepticeye playing and promoting the hell out of the game during the early access phase and during its release out of the goodness of their heart, which actually saved Unknown Worlds from bankruptcy, believe it or not. The game continues to gain popularity through marine biologists now playing the game, as well as having its sequel released this year. But the popularity must be made just. Prepare yourself folks, I'm about to tell you all why Subnautica is a genre defining experience. So let's dive in. So to begin, we almost instantly find out that Subnautica isn't like your average survival game. This title is narrative based. The appeal behind games like Minecraft or Terraria mainly come from the fact you explore a random world and strip it of its materials to either power yourself up or build something. Subnautica terrain isn't randomly generated, as a matter of fact it's always fixed. This world is not only integral to the story and therefore must be fixed, but also gives the game a more niche identity. Our player character Riley Robinson is the only survivor of the crash of the ship, the Aurora, you know, the massive unmissable landmark that you can always see. It is his job to survive and find a way off of the planet. Now of course, that's just the base of the story, you know, what we want is the meat and potatoes, so spoiler mode from here up until the end unfortunately. I normally don't do spoiler warnings, but since the best way to experience this game is for the first time, I do believe it is worth giving a spoiler warning here, so if you haven't already played the game and beat it yourself, I would highly recommend you do that first. So Riley eventually learns that this planet was once inhabited by a race of alien architects called the Precursors. They built the very structure that shot down the Aurora and the gassy airship, which was what the Aurora was tasked to find, as well as build a phase gate. He explores the planet and eventually contracts the Kara bacteria, a life-threatening disease which has plagued the planet for centuries and is what presumably killed off the Precursors on both this planet and their own. So Riley eventually makes his way to the primary research facility where he finds the Sea Emperor, who tells him through telepathy that he has to hatch its eggs, and if he doesn't then he and the planet will be doomed and there is no other way off. So he does just that, saves the planet, builds a Neptune rocket and he skedaddles. The lore is of course much more extensive than that, whether that be Precursor Past, the gassy Altera, Kara, or even the fact this game takes place in the same universe as Natural Selection, with elements such as Altera and Kara being in both titles, but that could just be an Easter egg. So enough about the lore and onto the gameplay, and it is what you'd expect, you know, explore, gather resources, build, repeat. Apart from you don't do it for funsies, rather you do it to progress the narrative. The game has a creative mode if you do want to do that and have some laid back fun, but the survival mode is my point of interest here and is what we'll be focusing on. Progression is never explicitly given to us, rather it's hinted at us. We will get radio signals that lead us to life pods which can contain lore files and new blueprints for craftables that allow us to proceed, and, or with less hassle, eventually enough exploring and blueprint scanning, the player will be able to go deeper and explore more. This is rinsed and repeated for about 17 plus hours on a first playthrough, but it's always remained fun, and it's interesting since the terrain is gorgeous with so much to see and learn about. The soundtrack makes every action and zone come to life even more, the sound direction is so goddamn good, and we can't forget about the fear. Yes, Subnautica is extra unique in the fact that it is a horror in disguise in my opinion. If you're a massive wimp like I am and have a fear of the ocean, large objects, creatures and submerged mechanical stuff, you'll be terrified of this game to say the least. The fog that prevents you from seeing what's up ahead until you get closer, the massive leviathans that pose a threat to progression and are genuinely terrifying, and the behemoth that is the Aurora having a looming presence, despite also being a safe guide, is genius. The closer you get, the larger it looks and more dangerous the surroundings become. The Aurora is likely the player's first experience with leviathans and the game's horror in general. It's all great horror, honestly, it really is. You know, whether it comes from the creepy look of a biome like the blood kelp or the horrific roar of the Reaper, or simply the unknown. This game heavily plays into fear of the unknown, and it's so good. The player always fearing what threat may lay ahead. It's mostly unheard of in this genre, but it's executed incredibly well. I can't count how many times I've been swimming or just zipping around in the sea moth minding my own business, only to come to a hard stop once it sets in that I can't see what's around me or below me, and I just hear a sound, you know, just an open ocean with atmospheric background music. distant creature sounds. It gets to the point where I just look for a life pod beacon and I head back. But sadly, the deeper you go and more you progress the narrative, the fear begins to vanish a little bit, as the deeper zones are far more linear and have less fog, so you can actually see what's going on and make more educated decisions. It's not a bad thing, but I just wish I was as terrified as, of the lava zone like I am the crash zone. However, my favourite part of the game comes from the wonder of the experience. Like I said earlier, since progression is never just given to us, I think it's so damn good how it's instead done. The player must pay attention to clues left on abandoned PDAs to figure out where they must go next and what to craft to get there. There's nothing as magical as your first dive into the water. There's nothing as mind-boggling as finding the island, the precursor tech, and, the sunbeam. There's nothing more fascinating than entering a new biome. Nothing as mind-blowing as discovering the gargantuan leviathan's fossil. Nothing as tense as avoiding the leviathan guarding what's ahead. Nothing as magical as helping the sea emperor. It's always incredible how Subnautica is always leaving the player in awe, as it keeps them hooked by having a diverse world and as well as a story that is interesting and encourages exploration through the sheer wonder and awe regarding what could be out there. Just having that sense of awe is what made me love Subnautica. The way we have to progress requires thought, and it's handled well, and it gives a player no weapons outside the basic survival knife, which is also a great way to keep up the fear. Subnautica does more than be a survival game. It's an adventure, it's an experience. It has a world and narrative that is incredible, with some equally as fun and captivating gameplay. The fear aspects keep the player even more curious, hooked, yet scared and interested. Being more focused on telling the story in this genre is a big risk, but with its gameplay backing it up, Subnautica doesn't fail at any point to deliver an experience that is memorable and magical. Subnautica shows the world that survival games aren't all endless arcade builders, and it shows us that even the most difficult of games and unique of gameplay style can have a story and it can remain interesting. The game creates a world that is so fantastic in its design and its effort. The game, simply put, is a masterpiece, and even though I do agree that God of War being Game of the Year for 2018, Subnautica was my personal Game of the Year for 2018. Not because it's superior, not at all, no, God no, but simply because this game defines the survival genre, and it makes something so much more and maybe will inspire similar titles. Or just the amazing world. Subnautica is without question an easy 9.5 out of 10, only just dragged down for its issues in performance, bugs and other things related to, the more technical aspect of the game. With its unforgettable nature and gripping world, Subnautica is an extraterrestrial treat that should be used as the foundation for what a great survival game can be going forward.